Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, September 2nd. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. It's back to school time and amid the coronavirus pandemic, while K-12 campuses just got the green light to reopen, one local university is backtracking. San Diego State is now reporting 64 COVID-19 cases since reopening August 24th, a big jump from what was reported yesterday. It comes as 7 more deaths and 250 new cases are reported countywide. As health reporter Taryn Mento tells us, SDSU is taking action to stop the spread.
San Diego State University is hitting pause. The university reopened for online and limited in-person learning late last month. But Vice President for Student Affairs Luke Wood says the 64 confirmed and probable cases of coronavirus among students has it shifting to online classes only for the next 4 weeks.
We understand that there may be some frustration with this decision, but we strongly believe that this is the best decision for our entire campus community.
University officials say many students didn't actually set foot on campus, and those that did were mostly for health services. At least 100 potential contacts are quarantined, and students can continue living in on-campus housing during the next 4 weeks. The county's Dr. Eric McDonald says they're still investigating any links between the cases, but he pointed to off-campus socializing.
You should not be scheduling or attending social gatherings that are not essential. And the essential job of a student is to participate fully in education. And most of that is online. Again, if it's not an essential activity as a student, really, you shouldn't be doing it.
He says there haven't been any hospitalizations, but many students have had symptoms, and he expects the number of cases to grow.
We are not minimizing the potential impact of this. I want to be very clear about this. We expect the numbers to go up. This is a serious situation. I have no doubt, frankly, that this will go into triple digits. I'll just say that right now.
The university's shift comes at the same time officials are warning San Diegans against celebrating together this Labor Day weekend. Supervisor Nathan Fletcher called on the public to hold themselves accountable.
One of the most dangerous settings is indoor gatherings. It is house parties. It is folks who are gathering together in an indoor setting. And there really is no way for us to enforce that or prevent that other than the public's help and cooperation.
He says increases in case counts could trigger closures on businesses that just this week were allowed to reopen their indoor areas. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
This week across the county, restaurants, gyms, salons, and other businesses are reopening with restrictions following new COVID guidelines. This time, businesses are required to take contact information from customers in the event of an outbreak. But KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman tells us not everyone is happy about that.
There's a one-man guy in the kitchen, which is my father. So it's just my dad, my mom. We have 2 servers plus me right now, so it's really small.
Allison Yu and her family own Hunan Chinese restaurant in Rancho Bernardo.
Very family run. This is our one source income, and if we make it through this, it'll be such a blessing.
Yu left her job as a restaurant manager to help out her mother, who's originally from the Philippines, and her dad, who was born in China. Without much space for outdoor seating, they've been surviving nearly only on takeout sales and jumped at the opportunity to reopen their dining room at 25% capacity this week.
I mean, of course, I think everybody wishes that we can be open 100%, but I think mentally, my dad is prepared to just work through it. He's been through worse. He's been through nothing and came from this.
This is not the first time they've reopened their dining room during the pandemic, but this time a new health order from county health officials is mandating that eateries and other businesses like salons, barbershops, and gyms take down the names and phone numbers of everyone who comes inside.
I do think that it's a little uncomfortable having to constantly tell a guest that right when they sit down and they're not expecting it. A lot of people don't or not in the loop. You wrote your name and phone number already?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry about the intrusion.
While they may not like it, you understands it's a mandate and is complying in order to help health officials contact trace if there was a positive case or an outbreak reported.
This is something that really makes it hard to run a business. It's already tough right now with everything, and now they want us to take personal information down from our customers.
The local chapter of the California Restaurant Association says they've been working closely with county health officials throughout the pandemic, but were caught off guard by this new mandate.
We're trying to adhere to everything possible that just makes the safety of our staff and our patrons the #1 priority, and this just doesn't seem something that goes towards that.
We don't want restaurants or all of the businesses to send this information to us. We want them to keep it on hand for a period of 3 weeks. This information will help with our contact tracing efforts and help us be more efficient.
You and her family are optimistic about the future. They just worry they might have to close their dining room again before the pandemic is over.
If it were to come, then we're going to adapt to it, and that's just all we can do because this is our only source of income. So we're fighting to survive.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thanks to improved COVID-19 infection rates, San Diego County allowed gyms to reopen this week. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says one gym that operated unlawfully for more than 2 months will likely get off scot-free.
Boulevard Fitness in University Heights made national headlines for its defiance of the county public health order to close indoor operations. After a citation and threats of hefty fines, the owner finally agreed to close last week. But the gym reopened Monday under the state's new guidelines, and the city attorney's office says if it stays in compliance, the owner won't have to pay any fines. Such news might anger people who feel it sends the wrong message to not punish those who violate the health order. Dr. Rebecca Fielding Miller is a professor at the UCSD School of Public Health. She says citations and fines have a role to play when businesses endanger public health, but that social pressure can work too.
It is not socially acceptable for you to run a business that means my kid can't go to kindergarten or 3rd grade. And I think it is perfectly appropriate to work to reinforce those social norms for us as a community to say this is unacceptable social behavior. This violates the social contract between us, and we don't want to be your friend anymore if this is something you're going to do.
Brian Welch is general manager of Point Loma Sports Club, which obeyed the county's health order while Boulevard Fitness flouted it. He says he won't judge other businesses too harshly if they had to stay open to survive. But he says the pandemic will be over faster if everyone just follows the rules.
I think it's less about punishment and more about community. And if it's everybody just wanted to throw open the doors, we're not going to wear masks, and then you look at the, as a society, the toll, which is sickness and death. I mean, the stakes are pretty high.
The city attorney's office says Boulevard Fitness could still face fines if they violate the public health order again. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The chief of the Environmental Protection Agency was in San Diego County today, hearing about efforts to contain cross-border sewage flows. KPBS Environment reporter Eric Anderson is live at the Coast Guard station with an update for us. Eric.
John, Andrew Wheeler came into town to talk to local officials about what's been going on as far as cross-border sewage. Now, that's been a huge problem for decades, and it got really bad this past winter when some days as many as 70 million gallons of sewage-tainted flows crossed the border. Now, the EPA administrator had some good news. On the Mexican side of the border, he said 3 pipe and pump projects were put into place to make things better. And he said on the U.S. side of the border, there are 2 projects that are going to get started soon, and they're worth $25 million.
One grant will help divert 10 million gallons a day of wastewater flow for treatment at the International Boundary and Water Commission treatment plant. Capturing this wastewater will stop most water pollution closures of beaches near the border and habitats along the river during the dry weather months. The second grant will help build a trash and sediment capture facility at Smuggler's Gulch.
Now, local officials are also hopeful about some more EPA money, $300 million in the USMCA trade deal. They are doing some environmental studies now and could have projects approved as early as spring of next year. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Thank you, Eric. UC San Diego is once again at the forefront of efforts to find a vaccine for COVID-19. The school will recruit about 1,600 people for the Phase 3 portion of clinical trials of a vaccine under development by the British firm AstraZeneca. The El Centro Regional Medical Center will also take part, recruiting about 1,000 participants in a community hit hard by COVID. 30,000 people are expected to participate across the country. The trials here will start next week. You may have seen articles on social media about a new CDC report claiming that only 6% of COVID-19 deaths are caused by the virus. But our media partners, 10 News, spoke to a doctor at UC San Diego Health who says people are misinterpreting the data. According to the CDC, more than 20 other causes have been listed on death certificates in 94% of COVID deaths. The most common, flu and pneumonia, followed by respiratory failure, hypertensive diabetes, acute respiratory distress syndrome, and cardiac arrest. Dr. Amy Bellinghausen says most are complications or pre-existing conditions that the virus made worse.
The reality is that this infection, coronavirus specifically, can be so overwhelming and cause so much inflammation in the body that it causes other organ systems to fail. And often that is ultimately the cause of somebody dying.
Dr. Bellinghausen says a better indicator is the CDC report on excess deaths. It shows a spike starting in March as COVID spread. Well, soak up these last few mild weather days while you can because a heat wave is coming. The county is opening cool zones this Labor Day weekend to give people without AC a break from the sweltering temperatures. There will be 9 of them at the locations you see on your screen. They'll be open from noon to 5, Saturday through Monday. Now, here's meteorologist Mark Mancuso with your forecast.
As we take a look at our weather headlines for today, really no big changes. We're still looking at some seasonal conditions, still pretty nice out there. And we're looking at our coastal clouds and areas of fog at night and the morning hours. But, you know, the marine layer is going to disappear this weekend as it gets really hot and the heat extends all the way to the coast. So be prepared for some extreme heat, and we're looking at excessive heat watches being issued here, and they'll continue into the weekend. So it's going to get very hot starting Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday. Sunday, they might start to see temperatures starting to turn around for some, but if you're going to be doing any outdoor exercise or work, you're going to have to put that off to the cooler parts of the days, and you're going to have to hydrate and come inside in the air conditioning often. Temperatures tonight, mid-60s, Oceanside, San Diego, El Cajon, low 60s, Escondido, Borrego Springs, 77, and Mount Laguna at 59. And here we go. High pressure is building Thursday into Friday. Along the coast, still tolerable, but interior sections, it's dry and it's getting a little bit warmer each day. As we take a look at our temperatures, Ramona's up to 94 tomorrow, El Cajon 91, Escondido's at 87, Borrego Springs 110, and Campo's at 99. And then for the weekend, there it is, the high intensifies. Boy, it's going to be really hot here, record challenging for some. Look at the temperatures here. Near the coast, we'll see temperatures start to rise. Look at this, by the weekend, it's hot. Temperatures into the 90s, no marine layer. Then Monday, looks like we'll start to see a little bit of cooling returning. So the worst of it this weekend. And then in the inland areas, look how hot it is Saturday and Sunday. Monday, not quite as hot. Mountain areas warming up. Temperatures in the upper 80s by Sunday. And in the deserts, it's going to be sizzling, especially this weekend. It stays brutally hot into Monday. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Governor Gavin Newsom unveiled a website today designed to explain California's new legislation to protect renters from eviction during the pandemic. HousingIsKey.com is meant to explain to tenants and landlords who qualifies for eviction relief until February and what efforts tenants must make to pay their rent. Newsom says California's moratorium is more expansive and lasts longer than the national moratorium announced by the CDC, and it takes precedence over it. Neither the state nor federal actions provide any cash relief to tenants. The city of San Diego has stopped making rent payments on its highly controversial lease on the downtown property at 101 Ash Street. San Diego signed a lease to own deal to move city employees into the former Sempra Energy office building. But the discovery of asbestos contamination rendered the building virtually useless, and the city is still on the hook for $535,000 in monthly rent payments. Mayor Kevin Faulconer says by suspending rent payments, the city will have the ability to assess all financial and legal options. The city is reviewing the lease agreement for its compliance with state law. The San Diego Police Department has, for the most part, followed a new state law and publicly released videos soon after officers shoot people. But one video from May still hasn't been released, and it's not clear why. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregesser looks into that case, and we'd like to let you know the following story does contain graphic images.
Just before 10 p.m. on Saturday, May 23rd, San Diego police officers went to the apartment of a woman who was throwing bottles into the street. Here's a media briefing from that night.
Numerous phone calls from different reporting parties stating that a female at the 1200 block of Market Street was throwing objects out of the window, striking some folks on the street. So the officers responded within minutes and attempted to make contact with the female. As they went into the apartment complex where she was at, gave her numerous commands to come out. She refused to come out.
Officers used a police dog to force her out, according to the San Diego Police Department report on the incident. The woman attacked the dog with a knife, and so police officers shot her, the report said. The woman, who is not being named, survived the shooting. Under AB 748, a new state law that went into effect a year ago, the department had 45 days to release video of the shooting. The department has complied with that requirement in the 7 other instances where officers shot someone since last July. But not this one.
If there's an investigative reason as to why you're not releasing video, that exemption can be made.
That's San Diego Police spokesman Lieutenant Sean Takeuchi.
So on the shooting, officer-involved shooting that occurred on May 23rd, there is an investigatory reason. I don't know what that reason is. I'm not in the homicide unit, but there's a reason why that hasn't been released.
By law, if the department doesn't release video, they're supposed to cite a specific reason why the video, quote, would substantially interfere with an active investigation. The San Diego Police Department hasn't done that in this case.
It's a little hard for me to understand how the disclosure of a video, of a body-worn camera video, would disclose information in a way that would impair an investigation.
James Chadwick is a First Amendment lawyer for Shepard Mullen, who has represented KPBS in public records cases.
They should be providing an explanation. What it is that is, what it is about this particular situation, this investigation, that is going to be compromised.
There may be a temptation among police departments to quickly release the videos where they look good and the shooting appears justified, and then delay release of more problematic videos. But that strategy likely won't work.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
So says Rachel Lang, who helps local police departments with crisis communication.
The problem is that in a time when it's not cut and dried and the video doesn't exonerate anybody or really display what actually happened, there's going to be trouble then, and people will obviously think that they're trying to hide something. So there's a little bit of a give and take there, but I would err toward releasing information more quickly.
Lang added that the Memorial Day killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis police has permanently raised the stakes for law enforcement agencies when it comes to transparency regarding use of force incidents.
I don't think we're ever going back to a time when the public will forget. It's not like you can just ride it out and hope that the news cycle moves on.
That's certainly true for Tasha Williamson, a San Diego activist. She says about the San Diego police,
they're releasing things that are in their favor. So they think, quote unquote, anything that's not in their favor, they need more time.
Assemblyman Phil Ting, who wrote the law requiring the videos to be released, says he included the investigation exemption as a compromise, but hopes to refine the law in the future.
We want to see how it's working. And obviously, as
as laws go into effect, you see whether there are loopholes, or you see definitely whether there are areas of which, are areas of concern. And so based on that, we would obviously make changes.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
The USS Carl Vinson supercarrier is back home in San Diego. The nuclear-powered ship arrived from Bremerton, Washington, where it's been undergoing upgrades and retrofitting at the Puget Sound Naval Air Station. The Vinson can now accommodate F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters. Crew living spaces were upgraded and maintenance was done on the ship's hull, rudders, and shafts. A very different first day of school for students in the Poway Unified School District. Today, there was a long line of cars as parents drove to school to pick up Chromebooks to start the year with distance learning. It was also an opportunity for students to meet their teachers in a physically distanced way. The district doesn't expect to bring back in-person learning until at least next year. San Diego County Roman Catholics can once again have services inside their churches. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer shows us about how one church celebrated Mass today with some restrictions.
Parishes in San Diego County, like St. Joseph's Cathedral, are now allowed to hold in-person services. Services must abide by social distancing protocols and are limited to a maximum of 100 parishioners.
Or now, instead of being outside in the sun and the wind, we can be more conveniently inside, indoors. And of course, it's more sacred. It's a sacred space, we call that, where we can come and worship together.
So we are grateful to God. We are to serve God.
Both inside and outside, the Mass is now very different.
Once they're in, they're supposed to sit 7 feet apart, unless they're family. They can congregate together. And then no singing, because they can pray, recite, but not sing because they say that might spread the bacteria. And then during communion time, they are to line up 7 feet apart, come forward wearing their mask at all times, and then receive communion only in the hand.
Churches can still have outside services, and Bishop Robert McElroy is encouraging parishes to continue to live stream Masses so that vulnerable communities are able to participate in exercising their spirituality.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
For now, we're allowed to come back, and we rejoice with that because we can, again, more fully practice our faith.
The diocese also oversees Imperial County, which has one of the highest case rates in the state. McElroy said the diocese is waiting for that county to issue new guidelines on indoor services. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
In a year consumed by coronavirus, the crisis, and racial unrest, voters are stressed about the presidential election. As Karen Kaifa explains, both Democrats and Republicans are trying to convince voters that their candidate will have a calming effect on the country.
The upcoming election is causing some to be on edge.
Fires are burning and we have a president who fans the flames.
Biden and the radical left's weak response has led to chaos and violence.
After President Trump took office, some saw their anxiety levels rise, leading therapists to coin a new phrase.
Trump anxiety disorder, the main symptom fearing that the world is ending.
While documented by psychologists and news broadcasts, the disorder isn't an official diagnosis. Still, a study by the American Psychological Association last year found the election to be a source of stress for 56% of Americans. That's up from 52% in 2016.
Look,
Biden promises if elected, Americans won't be as stressed.
I've been looking to lower the temperature in this country, not raise it.
While Democrats portray Biden as a calming candidate, Republicans cast President Trump as the strong candidate.
No one has more strength than Donald Trump. No one can keep up with him. I mean, yes, he's got the best message. Yes, he's got the best record, but he's got the best work ethic.
The Trump campaign launched ads this week portraying the president as a deliberate leader in a chaotic world.
Strong leadership when America needs it most.
This year, part of the Republican agenda is a pledge to return to normal in 2021. It's a nod to the pandemic that has upended life, amplified stress, and potentially might affect the presidential election. At the White House, I'm Karen Kaifa.
We have everything you need to know about the 2020 election on our website, kpbs.org/election. There you can find key deadlines and links to check your voter status and track your ballot. Plus, you'll find our recent stories on local candidates and ballot initiatives.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, in a surprise move, the Trump administration bans evictions until the end of the year. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Here is a recap of today's top stories. San Diego State University is pausing all in-person classes for the next 4 weeks after a spike in COVID-19 cases. The university is now reporting 64 cases since reopening August 24th. It comes as 7 more deaths and 250 new cases are reported countywide. Some local businesses are reopening indoors with restrictions following new COVID guidelines, but now they're required to take contact information from customers in the event of an outbreak. The local chapter of the California Restaurant Association says it was caught off guard by the new mandate. And a gym that operated unlawfully for more than 2 months will likely get off scot-free. Boulevard Fitness in University Heights finally closed last week after citations and threats of fines. But the gym reopened on Monday under the state's new guidelines. Now, the city attorney's office says if it stays in compliance, the owner won't have to pay any fines. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.